So this is our last video of the nervous system section, and we're going to look at the role of the receptors in what's called the stimulus response model and how we can trick those receptors. So we always have this stimulus response model. So all sense information sends information to the brain, sends the information along those sensory neuron, and the information is processed by the brain, and then we decide on a response. Okay. Things can sometimes go wrong with that pathway though. One example is if we have a colour deficiency, like Mr. Axup has, fun fact. He's red-green colour deficient, which is the most common one. And it doesn't mean that you can't see those colours. Have a look at the images there. It just means that you're not perceiving the same range of colours there. Okay. What's happening in that case is, whereas most people would have 3 different types of cones, they've only got 2. So we're not sending the same degree of information, same depth of information through to the brain. We can also, for instance, get damage to the optic nerve, and that would again make it harder to send signals to the brain, and eventually if that was severe enough, then you can get blindness occurring. Sometimes though, without damage, we can still trick the brain. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of illusions in a minute. Now what's happening is basically you are trying to see what you think is going to happen. Your brain is basically trying to fill in some gaps. So it's trying to generate a perception. It's trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Okay? So if we look at those, the circles are not really moving, and yet they appear to be. You're seeing black dots all over the place, and yet when try and focus on one of them and it disappears, but you're seeing them in your peripheral vision. Or here, there again, there is no movement in this picture, it is completely static. This is not a video, and yet it's appearing to move. Some people do have disorders that can affect them severely. So this girl, Ashlyn Blocker of Georgia, is unable to feel any pain. So her pain receptors, they do exist, but they can't send electrical signals to her sensory nerves, and therefore she doesn't feel the pain. She can feel pressure, she can feel heat, but she doesn't get a pain response in response to heat. She doesn't get a pain response. It's really dangerous. It means, you know, when she was a small child, she ended up putting her hand in boiling water. She could feel that it was hot, but it didn't hurt her. Okay. She is now able to intellectually understand those dangers, even if she can't feel the dangers. So she has to be extra careful. Now, different parts of your body have different degrees of sensitivity. That's because we have different amount of receptors. And you can map that out using something called a homunculus. So if we look at this picture up here, okay, the bits that are larger are the bits where there are more pain receptors.